On January 27, 2026, a powerful Atlantic storm named Chandra swept across the United Kingdom and Ireland, bringing with it a barrage of torrential rain, destructive winds, and widespread flooding. After weeks of persistent rainfall that had already left the ground waterlogged and rivers dangerously full, Storm Chandra arrived like a final blow. Within hours, entire towns were submerged, rivers burst their banks, major roads were swallowed, and thousands of residents faced power outages and evacuations. For many across the region, it was a day of chaos, fear, and heartbreak. In the United Kingdom, the situation escalated rapidly. Over 99 severe flood warnings were issued, indicating a direct threat to life, alongside more than 260 flood alerts. The storm's heaviest impacts were felt in the southwest of England, the Midlands, and the northern regions, where rivers such as the Otter, Ouse, and Parrett surged far beyond their normal levels. In Somerset, officials declared a major incident as water swept through the levels, a low-lying area already prone to flooding. Homes were quickly surrounded by rising water, and emergency crews launched boats to rescue trapped residents. In Devon, the River Otter reached its highest recorded water level, turning the picturesque town of Ottery St. Mary into a disaster zone. Streets vanished beneath murky floodwaters, and vehicles were swept away by fast-moving currents. Authorities warned of real danger to life and urged residents to evacuate immediately. Farther north in the city of York, the River Ouse overflowed, flooding the city center and forcing businesses to close. Residents stood helpless as water poured into shops, basements, and ground-floor apartments. Across the Irish Sea, Storm Chandra proved just as devastating in Ireland. The southeastern counties were among the hardest hit, with the River Slaney and Enniscorthy rising rapidly and flooding the town center. Streets turned into rivers overnight, with cars left stranded and businesses completely inundated. Emergency services scrambled to evacuate residents as water levels surged beyond expectations. Towns in Wicklow, Kilkenny, Carlow, and Waterford also reported extensive flash flooding as overwhelmed drainage systems failed to cope with the deluge. In Dublin, first responders were called to multiple incidents where vehicles were trapped in rising water. Across the country, nearly 30,000 households lost power due to damaged infrastructure, and floodwaters rendered several roads impassable. Dozens of schools were forced to shut down as a precaution, and national weather services issued warnings urging the public to avoid unnecessary travel. The storm brought the country's transportation network to a near standstill. Key motorways, including parts of the M5, were closed due to deep floodwaters. Rail lines in the southwest and Midlands were either suspended or heavily delayed, with major train operators cancelling services. Hundreds of schools across England and Wales closed their doors, and local events and sporting fixtures were postponed or cancelled altogether. Widespread power outages added to the misery. More than 30,000 homes were left without electricity as high winds knocked down trees and damaged power lines. Utility workers struggled to restore service in the midst of ongoing floods and dangerous conditions. Meanwhile, in the northern regions and parts of Scotland, snow and ice compounded the crisis. Heavy snowfall blanketed roads and created blizzard-like conditions in highland areas, making it even more difficult for emergency services to reach the worst-hit communities. The Irish government responded by opening an emergency relief fund to support affected families, offering financial assistance for repairs, temporary housing, and basic needs. In the UK, flood response teams continued to operate pumps, inspect riverbanks, and provide critical support to vulnerable communities. Both governments acknowledged that climate-related events like Chandra are becoming more frequent and more intense, and called for greater investment in long-term flood protection and infrastructure upgrades. Storm Chandra impact has been described by officials and residents alike as catastrophic. What made the situation worse was not just the volume of rainfall, but the fact that it fell on already saturated land. With nowhere for the water to go, rivers rose within minutes, drainage systems overflowed, and streets were consumed. Emergency responders were praised for their swift action, but even their best efforts were overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the flooding. While the storm has passed, the danger is not over. River levels remain high, many areas are still underwater, and new cold weather systems are moving in. Freezing temperatures, black ice, and additional snowfall are expected in the days ahead, threatening to prolong the crisis and hinder recovery efforts. Residents are being urged to remain alert, listen to local authorities, and avoid flooded roads and rivers, which continue to pose significant risk